All right, everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to point out for everyone is that there are 3 key docs today for this conversation. The first is the Google slide that you are jumping into, which is great. And that just gives the headlines of what we're going to walk through and also links you, provides the links for the key documents we'll be digging into. The second key doc is a Google Doc. I'll click over to it here, which provides a very similar overview to the Google slide, but more detail. And the final document that I'm very excited to share, which is actually a Google Sheet, which is an online Excel spreadsheet, is our Competency Prototype Workbook. And that looks like this. And if you jump in, you'll click into the cover page, you'll see the revised version of the competency descriptions, a quick visual of the taxonomy, which we'll talk through in just a moment, and then you'll see the 4 competencies that we've begun to develop continua for. So we will jump into that in a moment. So those are the 3 core resources. Let's jump in. So where are we in this design journey for developing a set of prototype competencies? So just a quick reminder for all of us, we kicked off with an initial stakeholder focus group. We did some data collection and analysis to get a sense of your aspirations and vision for the competencies and how they can be a critical tool for helping to make actionable our profile of a South Carolina graduate. We did our research and scan of the field and then began, put pen to paper and began drafting a set of competencies for your review. And then we had a second stakeholder focus group in which you looked at those draft competencies and provided warm feedback, cool feedback, and suggestions. And we took that data and consolidated it and looked closely at it. And then began our next round of work. And so we are here to share that work with you, and again, to get your input, and very excited to hear what you think and to have have you weigh in on where we are at this stage. So what's new? So here's the latest. The 3 updates here are, one, that as I just mentioned, we've taken that feedback from the focus group, but also we've taken feedback from a number of sort of in-person sessions led by Stephanie DeStasio to connect with people across the state and get their input on the competencies. And we've heard really great and positive things. We've had wonderful feedback, but lots of folks have been engaged at this stage, and we're very excited about that. So we've taken that data. The stakeholder data specific to our previous in-person sessions is available here, and then what we can also provide you with that list of folks that and other events that folks have had the chance to weigh in on. Secondly, we have heard your feedback about the competencies and revised some of the language, and then finally we have drafted 4 competency continua or progressions for your review. Quick headlines that we wanted to share and some of the cooler feedback we received. Here were some things that came out of our last stakeholder group. One, there was a concern there might be too many competencies, and there are 12. Number 2, there was a trend around making sure there was a parent-friendly or family-friendly version and language around the competencies, which we will certainly attend to. And just know that there will be lots of, several key tools and guidance documents and ways of framing this work for different stakeholders. So we'll be sure to attend to that. There was a trend around using consistent phrasing, around making it more explicitly connected to the profile of a South Carolina graduate, and in particular, the life and career characteristics. There were some suggestions around possibly cutting the competency sustaining wellness, and then more explicit connections to the profile, actually, as I mentioned as well. So those are some of the headlines of the cool feedback. and suggestions that we received. So at this stage, what we're going to do is walk you through where we are to date. And then when you get a chance to take a, to do a close read of the revised competencies and of the continua, we're going to invite you to fill out a feedback survey if you are interested and willing, where you can send along your feedback for us that we can take into consideration as we move into this next round of work. I also wanted to highlight for you that we are still figuring out how to make more explicit those connections between the profile. We used a color coding scheme that we shared with you last time, and we are still sort of exploring ways to represent the big picture of the competencies and how they connect to the profile. So we will be circling back with that. We've been building out a couple examples, but we're holding on that for now, and we'll circle back. And then finally, we've wrestled with this question of what to cut. Do we cut any of those competencies? And it's difficult because there are stakeholders across South Carolina who've been weighing in, and as I mentioned, some in the initial group said we should maybe cut sustaining wellness, but that came up as a really important one for others. And so we're going to ask you to weigh in the feedback survey. Should we cut any competencies, and if so, which ones? So you'll have a chance to weigh in, so please do complete that feedback survey if you have some suggestions to share and would like to weigh in on that. The feedback survey link is here in the stock. It's tinyurl.com/SC Competencies 1802 for February 2018. So at any time in the next 2 weeks, we're inviting you to complete this survey after you've had a chance to check out the competencies. Any questions so far? Please feel free to unmute and raise a question or use the chat box.
Sydney.
Yes.
This is Peggy Torrey.
Hi, Peggy.
It might be helpful, and you may be planning to do this, but if you send us that URL link on an email after the phone call so that we wouldn't have to go back through things and find it, that would be great.
We will absolutely do that. Thank you for that. We'll actually send out a link with all 3 of those documents that you can access. Thank you for that, Peggy. That's great. All right. So let's take a look at the revised competencies, moving to slide 8. And we'll just move through this fairly quickly, but essentially we've adjusted the phrasing of the competencies themselves so that they are consistently phrased. And you can see the highlights where we've updated. We still have all 12 listed, of course, because we're going to ask you to weigh in on whether or not any of these should be removed from our list of competencies. So that's our update number 1. We've revised the competency phrasing. Update number 2 is we've revised the competency descriptions, hearing the feedback around having this be a little more family friendly. So please take a look at those statements and know again that we will have different ways of representing this work to different stakeholders, but we did want to revise that language a bit based on the feedback that was shared. So you can read through the descriptions here. I won't read through them for you. This is certainly, I want to be mindful of your time and allow you to, to do your review at your leisure. And I'll move right along. Our last major update, and we're going to dig into this now for a few minutes, is our draft continua. We've developed the continua for 4 competencies. They are using sources, investigating through inquiry, designing solutions, and resolving conflict. On this slide, and also in the Google document I mentioned earlier, we give folks a bit of a picture of how this particular competency plays a role in different contexts in school and learning. And then also on the last column, we've added some possible products or projects that would be great opportunities for students to build, develop, and evidence these competencies through their work. So you can take a close look at that. And there's some other more detailed information in the Google Doc that I referenced. But those are the 4 that we have drafted. And this is now where we're going to jump into the workbook and take a look at those. We'll do a deep dive on one of the competencies continuum specifically and give you a sense of what you're looking at and how to sort of read through it. And then we'll close with questions. So I'm going to jump in now to the Competency Workbook, and I'm going to click into the tab down below that takes me to the sheet for design, or designing solutions is the competency. And so as you look on this sort of landing page, a few things I want to bring to your attention. The competency itself is at the top left, as you can see. The nested skills that are essential to building and demonstrating that competency are down below. They are: frame a design problem or challenge, research the problem, generate and validate ideas, build a prototype or model, test and iterate. I also want to bring to your attention on the top right corner, you can see the connections that can be made to the South Carolina profile of a graduate. For this particular competency, we have mapped this to the creativity and critical thinking skills, and we've also tagged it to global perspective. And you will see in the language of the performance indicators where that comes to life, where that connection is explicit. So one other thing to call out for you before we just do a little read left to right is that you notice there are 6 performance bands that we have developed language for, all developmental language, all student facing, all positive and constructive, rather than deficit language that describes what's missing in the work. We've used positive developmental language to describe the pathway toward our ultimate goal of college and workforce readiness. So let's take a quick look. If we explore the first row or first skill of designing solutions, which is framing a design problem or challenge, you'll notice that the descriptors become more sophisticated as they move upward from level 1 toward level 6. You'll notice that we've added bold font to the specific words or phrases or indicators that change or become more complex as you move across the continuum. And we've also done a small little tag to give you a sense of what levels, how they correspond to how we currently think about grade levels and ages. So for example, level 1 corresponds to the K-2 band, level 2 corresponds to grade 3 to 5 band, and so forth. One question that we have for you all is what you would like level 6 to represent. There are two main ways to go about this. Level 6 can represent what is sort of graduation ready, and another option is for level 6 to represent what is the aspiration for beyond high school, sort of the first performance level that you would expect within within college or workforce. We've done it the latter way, so that folks have a clear picture of the aspiration in the ultimate context that we're moving toward. But I wanted to raise that in case anyone had either questions or concerns, or wanted to provide feedback about that particular design decision that we made. So that's sort of the layout of the progression. Notice this is a digital document, of course, and we consider this sort of the master file. We've seen teachers in various contexts make this their own. For example, a second grade teacher might just grab the language from levels 1 to 3 and make that a single document that they print out and have available for kids in class. So you could grab several bands and make that a single page document. So there are ways we can migrate this to print form that makes sense for the particular context, the particular teacher, and the particular students. But consider this sort of the master version that gives us the full picture of the continuum, and as I mentioned before, makes explicit the connections to the profile. So that is the big picture. And then if you click into these other competencies, you'll see inquiry, using sources, and resolving conflict. We did want to add one continuum in this first round of showing you the continuum that was less about the sort of academic skills, and one that was specifically more on the socio-emotional side of things. And so this is one continuum that represents that, resolving conflict. Again, you can see the skills: recognize and manage my own emotions, recognize the feelings and perspectives of others, use verbal and nonverbal communication skills, and use strategies to resolve conflict. All right, so that is the sort of big picture of where we are. We're excited to have you look through these continua. You are welcome to add comments right into the workbook, which you can do by clicking, where are we, tools? I know the shortcut here. Insert comment, and then you can add a comment directly into the text field. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we have the feedback survey, and we would love to have you all complete the feedback survey, so we've got everything consolidated there. But you're welcome to provide, more nuanced or granular, feedback on the specific language of the continuum right in the workbook.
We will be sending this out to, as you know, this stakeholder group is much larger than we knew everyone would be able to participate live. But we wanted the chance to be able to explain the documents and be able to send out the links so that we can get feedback from the widest possible group. When we have all of the competencies with the continua done, in April, this will not be a quote unquote finished product. Our goal is to have something that includes all of the competencies for the profile, and to be able to put it into the hands of those schools and districts who are choosing to participate in the personalized learning competency-based tiered support network, so that they will have the entire next school year to begin using this document and continuing this feedback loop, so that it's really in the hands of teachers, kids, and parents, so that becomes that next layer of feedback as well from them. We really appreciate everyone coming on board to help us with giving some additional feedback with this, and we will continue to be in touch and look forward to seeing you at the face-to-face meeting.